Doing pretty good. Day 9 without the Model X. How are you doing? Just got a message from the team today that they have started the repairs. The Falcon door wings are fine, it would appear, so that's a good news. The favorite part of the car, I would have to say it's the jump up from the Model Y to the Model X, the space that is there. I don't know. It's all these amenities and all these features. I didn't think the Model Y could get better until you get in the Model, I imagine S or X, and you're like, holy smokes, there's a huge difference. Oh, zero. We just got the pup Chewbacca. No kids, and if we do have kids, yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not actively looking for it either.
I'm well, thanks. How are you? Mm, just doing some chores today.
Hey man, it's good. Yeah, time zones are mad. 7 p.m.
Sorry, doing a little troubleshooting. I can hear the guests on the YouTube Live. I just can't hear you. I had to go back and check, but but while you troubleshoot that, I owned a 2016 Hyundai Sonata hybrid, so I did make the leap from ICE to. But while you troubleshoot that, I owned a 2016 Hyundai Sonata hybrid, so I did make the leap from ICE to hybrid to EV. Not saying that most people won't do that, but
All right, can you hear me better over there now?
let me double check. Hybrid. So I did make the leap from ICE. I think it should be good. Not saying that most.
Amateur hour. This is ridiculous.
It's all good, Yaman. It's good now.
Okay, thank you. All right. What do you guys want to talk about today? Alexander, what do you think of the VW news in Europe? They are looking to close down some factories. The CFO apparently said they have 1 to 2 years to turn things around.
Really? Yeah. I think the pressure from the Chinese market is affecting Europe. And then we have, I mean, our rates are also high now, so it's not a good time to buy a new car if you don't have the cash. I heard Volvo today. They said they're gonna drop the goal of being fully electric to 2030. They say they're gonna have 90 to 100% of the fleet instead, and that's gonna include hybrids. So yeah.
Yeah, they are the latest one to drop their plans. Looks like they're kind of falling like flies. Did you hear about the S-Class sales in US, Europe, in China. They're going down pretty fast, and Mercedes is shutting down, taking off production lines now for the S-Class shifts.
Yeah, I mean, why would you buy S-Class, really? I can't imagine that. And then obviously the quality of the cars have gone down. I mean, two of my colleagues have had the EQS, and both batteries in both cars have died. Actually, one of the cars actually died last week when we were on a conference. He couldn't get home. And he looked at me and said, I don't want to hear anything about Tesla, okay?
Why is that?
I'm the only one on the company that has a Tesla, but I've convinced a lot of suppliers to actually buy the cars. But I mean, they want to have like European cars, I guess. But then again, Model Y is made in Europe, so.
Is it driven by politics?
Well, maybe not, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like there's so many different opinions and reasons why you can't drive electric or why you can't drive a Tesla. But mostly it is, I think the resistance is you can't use electric. But I mean, there are a lot of Swedish people that have an electric car today, so the majority thinks it's good, I guess.
You said you're the only person to drive one at your company. How many people at your company?
We are about 20 people, so not that many.
Does your company lease cars to employees?
Yeah, we have BMW i4, a lot of those that we drive around. So we drive electric cars in the company, but just not Teslas.
So the company doesn't basically chose to leave Tesla out of the list?
Yeah, that is that. But then again, you can't really make a deal with the Tesla when it comes to buying a fleet of cars. So let's say our company said like, oh, we wanted to buy like 20 company cars. I mean, Tesla would say like, yeah, this is the price you pay like everybody else. But if you go to like a BMW dealer or a Mercedes dealer, then you can get like 10% off, 15%, maybe more if you're lucky.
Yeah, but aren't Teslas already cheaper than non-Tesla EVs in Europe?
Yes, they are. I mean, the BMW i4, like sneak condition, you get nothing. Okay, not even. I don't even think I have cabin lights in my i4, and that's more expensive than the Model 3 Performance.
So it's kind of like, it makes the purchasing manager of a company feel better if they get a discount, even though the deal isn't nearly as good as the sticker price for a Tesla. So it's kind of like Black Friday discounts. It may be the same price, but because it's discounted from original price, it makes people feel better. Is that the kind of situation that's going on here?
Yeah, that's a part of it. But then again, also, as I work in the manufacturing industry, like we have customers, obviously, around the OEMs, and we can't like, if we drive like European cars, that looks better than driving I guess an American car or a Chinese car. So that's also a part of it. You can't, yeah. If we came in a Chinese car, probably some of our customers would be like, oh, okay, we're producing like stuff for European cars, and they are going around buying like some other brand. Not good.
Have you ever went to your purchasing manager and said, "Hey, we should look into Teslas"? What was the response?
You can't believe yeah, they are so tired of hearing me talk about Tesla. So it's not like I'm being quiet. I'm like every other Tesla fanboy.
So what did they say, for example? You say, okay, the car I'm driving right now is better from the ones that you're buying in this way, that way, etc. And even though you're getting bulk discounts, this is still a much better deal. What's the response you get?
I can't, I'm gonna let you down now, but I can't really discuss the internal talks of the company publicly. That wouldn't look good, so I'm gonna pass
Yeah,
on
that's
that.
fine. That's okay. I understand. Hustletown, what do you say to this? What do you think is going to change this trend in Europe?
Yeah, man, I really don't. I don't know. I'm a big fan of the product will speak for itself. Individuals like Alexander, they're going to promote the brand enough to get people's interest, spark their interest, and they're gonna. The adoption rate should happen naturally.
Yeah, well, it's not happening though, right? It's slowed down quite a bit. It's taken longer than we thought. Something's going to change. Alexander, do you use autopilots when you're driving?
Yeah, all the time. When I'm using my Tesla, I'm using the autopilot. Like autopilot can still do like 85% of my drives because Sweden are mostly highways. So it's a tall country. I have like 80, 90 kilometers to work that I drive every day. I don't know what that is in miles. It's divided by 1.6, I think. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's an average. That's a very average. In US, the average commute is about 45 miles. So your commute is about the same. And you said mostly highways on Sweden. Can it change lanes?
yeah. If I push the stock, it can. So I need to indicate.
Okay. Wow, that's really good. Does it adjust the speed on its own?
Yeah, it takes reads. I think it's map data. And it's reading signs, but sometimes it just changes speed without there being a sign. So it's a mix of map data and vision, I think.
Yeah. I think the primary reason why FSD is being neutered in Europe is because of the pressure that legacy automakers are feeling in Europe. Like VW, for example, saying they have only 1 to 2 years to turn things around. The CFO of VW saying they have only 1 to 2 years to turn things around is a massive, massive indication. They're looking to do what is unthinkable to do in Germany, which is to shut down plants. But apparently, the fact is they have production capacity, global production capacity of 14 million vehicles a year, and they only use 9 million vehicles of it, which is amazing. They have tremendous excess production capacity. So we'll see what happens. Dallas, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. You're not driving today, I see.
Yeah. No, I'm driving right now, actually.
You are? Well, your sound quality is really good.
That's good. I'm not sure if I changed the microphone setting. I'm just speakerphone on the iPhone 13 Pro Max.
Okay. Well, stick with this, whatever you're doing.
Sounds
What do you got going on? What's on your mind?
I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but my excitement on the Smart Summon, or actually Smart Summon, was a little curbed, no pun intended, when I saw Dirty Tesla's video last night, or I guess today, rather. I always love his videos. I think he takes a very real approach to these software releases, and he showed it taking a bite out of a curb, which Tesla people will admit we're extremely protective of our cars. And I think that's going to be something that people need to keep in mind, that this is still a beta software, and things like that can happen. And these are expensive wheels on these cars. So I hope that is fixed in a update soon, but we'll see.
Well, I watched that video too, and in a reply to his video on YouTube, he says something like, "It didn't hit the curb." Did you see that?
No, I didn't. I mean, it hit something. Or at least it looked like it on my end.
Hustletown, did you see that?
Yeah, it looked like it hit something. I don't know if it was the curb or not, but it looked like it hit something.
Okay. Mr. J?
Yeah, I just want to say on the highlighted comment on that video with the Dirty Tesla, the car didn't actually curb the wheels because it
Yeah,
was
exactly.
it
Yeah.
was
So
like an automatic
I
stop.
I pinned it at the top, the highlighted comment, continuous learning. Thank you very much for bringing this up, because I saw this too and said, it says correction. If you go to 11 minutes, you can see the car did not hit the curb. As hit the brakes very hard to avoid hitting the curb. Thanks to those that pointed this out. Yeah. So there you go, Dallas. Now is your enthusiasm uncurbed?
Yeah, I think that definitely helps. I mean, in general, though, I think a lot of FSD users can attest that these cars take turns a little uncomfortably tight, and maybe just my personal driving style, I tend to turn a little wider around curbs. But maybe that's something we see change down the road.
Is it getting better though? Like, I know this was an issue a few months ago, but hasn't it gotten better?
Yeah, on my end, I'm noticing a little more comfortability on turns to where I'm not, I used to run the cameras while I was driving on FSD so I could see the right edge of my wheels at all times. And that's something I feel comfortable enough to not have to use anymore. But I think most FSD drivers would like to know that there's a almost 100% chance that this thing is never going to drive over a curb. Just that doesn't seem that hard, but I know going the end-to-end approach, they're not just coding things in like don't ever hit a curb, because in a wreck maybe you do want the car to drive over a curb. I don't know.
Which version are you on now? 12 dot
5.1.3, I think.
Okay.
I haven't gotten an update in a little while, but I did get 12.5. I'm on hardware 4 if that helps.
Yeah, that's great. So you are the latest and the greatest, basically, except for this last one that's coming out. So you've been using it with just eye tracking, no hands on the steering wheel. How do you like that?
I think it's the way to go. Obviously, I think it's it's another level of holy cow, this is amazing software because you're no longer touching the wheel. I do subscribe and agree with the thought that it's a little gun to the head feel for now, a lot more than Super Cruise. I told you about my experience with Super Cruise. I feel like that was one of the only real benefits of Super Cruise, is that it's a lot more lenient on attentive monitoring, if you will. And I've heard that this is going to become a little more lax as we go, with them adding sunglasses support and stuff like that. But right now, I mean, even if you look down at your screen to check where you're going or how far away your next turn is, it's going to start blaring at you. So that's just the way it is right now.
Okay, let's talk about this question I just pinned at the top. Okay, the question is, when will Tesla FSD users exceed 1 million? So Dallas uses FSD, Hustletown uses FSD, Alexander uses autopilot in Europe. You all are very experienced and knowledgeable about this topic. Think of your guesses of when Tesla FSD users will exceed 1 million. While you think about that, let's go to Lucas. Lucas?
Hey, sorry, I know you just changed topics, but I just wanted to chat for a moment about the software, Tesla software in Europe, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've recently got Auto Park here, and I'd say my experience has been generally good. Some mixed results overall, I would say. There are definitely instances where the cameras just can't pick up the spaces. And I think that's maybe in part because some of the lines, or at least the space, is maybe it's just looking a little bit different here in Europe rather than in North America. I do notice that the updated software for signage has been quite good. It's picked up a lot of the signs on the side of the road in monitoring the speeds, which has been great. However, here, a lot of markings, at least in Switzerland and even in Germany, are on the road. And I noticed that it's not picking that up. So, for example, near my place, there's a 30 zone, and it's only painted on the ground, and it's not on a sign. So it's missing that pretty regularly. But I mean, over time, all this stuff will get caught and it'll be addressed. But for now, that's just some of the limitations. But the autopilot that is currently available is working fairly well. I went through a construction zone last week with yellow lines painted over white lines, and generally it performs okay through that, which is good. But I definitely pretty cautious still. Sometimes it kind of freaks out a bit. But I have to say, I would really love, my number one request at this point for software would be to have some kind of hands-free, as it was just discussed, hands-free version of even just auto lane steer or autopilot that is presently available in Europe. I timed it, and I have about 15 seconds or less between times that I need to address the steering wheel nag. And 15 seconds is honestly just, not a pleasant experience. It definitely gets old after a while. Although I do have the, given the permission for the in-cabin camera. So yeah, if I look at the screen, like was just said, it freaks out and lets me know I shouldn't do that. Why can't we possibly get this in Europe for those of us here who don't have a hope and a prayer for FSD, at least in the next little bit? But that would be great to get some kind of an update like this. At least a little bit longer nag. My goodness, these European laws sometimes, I tell you. So anyways, that's been my experience recently with FSD, or at least FSD trial software here.
Thank you, Lucas. Appreciate your experience and sharing your experience with us. All right, let's talk about the topic at the top. When will Tesla FSD users exceed 1 million? Let's start with Dallas.
Are we able to know how many there are right now? Because I do not know that number.
I mean, you know what I know.
Okay.
Yeah, about 400, 500,000 people have bought or subscribed to it.
Yep.
But the question is, how many of them use it daily? That we don't know.
Yeah. I'd say 12 to 18 months from now, if we see I don't know. I'm going to go with 18 months.
Okay. So early 2026. Wow. What happened to your optimism? I started with you because you're the optimistic one.
I know. I'm just going to play it safe on this one because I do think it's going to be quite an achievement to double the users. And to your point, you mentioned a great point there. There's people who are subscribers and owners, but how many of them actually use it is a whole nother question. So I'll go 18 months.
Okay. We're going to go optimistic to pessimistic. So Hustletown?
Pessimistic? No, I think it's Q4.
No, you're the second optimistic.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, go ahead. What'd you say?
Q4 2025. I think that there'll be a data flywheel that happens, and it's going to take off exponentially. So we're going to see more and more users, especially as the software gets better and better.
Okay. Q4 2025. Wow. Man, you guys are making us miss Omar. Speak of the devil, he's right here. And then let's go to the next pessimistic person, Alexander. The less optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many Teslas there are in the US with hardware 3 and 4. If you say it's about half a million.
Ask me all the facts you need.
Okay, how many cars are there with hardware 3 and 4 in the US?
I mean, we don't know exactly, but let's approximately 3 million Teslas in US and Canada.
Okay. I mean, if 1010 is really good and people really get a sense of how good FSD can be, I mean, maybe already early next year, like Q1 2025.
Wow. So I thought I was going from optimistic to pessimistic, but actually what's happening is the reverse. I mean, when I ask Magic next, which I thought was going to be the most pessimistic person, he's going to select tomorrow. Magic, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, there been substantial price cuts on this product?
Yeah, $99 a month, $8,000 to buy.
Okay, so if you have to continually cut prices to increase the take rate, I'm not very optimistic, obviously.
Okay, so give me a date.
I mean, maybe at $10 a month, we can get there next year, right? I mean, $10 a month. You want to keep cutting prices, it's going to go down every month. So it depends on what the price is. At $10 a month, I don't even think it's material. You can have 2 million, you have 3 million of them. It's not going to do anything to the financials, really.
Okay, Dallas.
I mean, obviously, going down to $10 a month is probably not realistic, given that the software was originally priced at 200. And you know, I understand even 100 seems for a lot of people to be a lot of money, given that most subscriptions people pay for, like Amazon or Netflix or anything, is nowhere close to that. I personally see like a $50 price point being the perfect middle ground, but I know a lot of people think that that's way too low for what the software does.
Yeah, for the purposes of this exercise, just assume the price doesn't change. For the purposes of this exercise, assume the price doesn't change. And I would like everyone in the listener mode to reply to the tweet at the top and let us know when you think Tesla FSD users will exceed 1 million. You can leave your guess in the reply to the tweet at the top. Omar, welcome.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Alexander, what time is it over there?
7:30 p.m. I think.
7:30 p.m. Yeah. Okay, so we have to the tweet at the top, Dallas said early 2026. Alexander said, sorry, Hustletown said Q4 2025, and Alexander said Q1 2025. I think Omar is at Q1, right, Omar?
For a million FSD users?
Right.
Yeah, if not sooner, honestly, given what I'm seeing with the latest software. I mean, the ass is like too cool not to try.
Yeah, try that. I still can't say it here. I mean, public.
There's also another round of free trials. Also, if you look at the broader, pricing of FSD, it's actually gone up in price quite a bit over time. It used to be a $2,000 or $3,000 option when it was originally unveiled. Um, you know, 7,000 was kind of like the average price over time, and then it started going up in price. It went to 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 during the pandemic when people were paying huge markups on cars. The price of FSD also went up. Then they dropped the price down to 8,000 after the pandemic was over and auto prices started falling. And they also introduced a subscription that was originally $199. They cut it to $99. So, the revenue you get from the purchase is one thing. That's kind of how they're monetizing it now. Obviously, after it's good enough to be driverless, you potentially don't have to charge the user anything, and you can generate revenue by taking a cut of any revenue that the car makes.
Okay, great. I found a solution. I'm going to say tomato instead of, so squeeze that tomato, try the tomato. Alexander.
Omar, are you saying you can get ass for free in the US? I'm coming immediately.
All right. San Joaquin Valley.
Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, look, all this is great. I love that everybody likes ass now. I just need to know when I'm getting it for my Cybertruck. I don't really care about anything else.
Well, the good news is I saw Ashok talking to a Cybertruck earlier today, and he
Yeah, I
told the
saw that.
Cybertruck that Auto Park is coming this weekend.
Yeah, that's gonna be freaking sick. So we're just chipping away at it, it seems like. Okay, so I have a real question that people have asked me, and so I figured I would ask you guys. Ask the group. what is the major difference from having FSD on the Cybertruck versus, I know the extra camera, but besides that, like what's the big holdup for it being on implemented versus on the other vehicles?
Well, there's a ton of new technology on the Cybertruck, and you can see that it mostly works. Like the Cybertruck has a visualization, and you can see everything in there. So the vision system's working pretty well, but there are a few new technologies that they need to adapt for. One is steer by wire, and in particular, the variable steering. So more training is needed to get FSD to learn how to steer the Cybertruck correctly. Then the other thing is, because the Cybertruck is such a high vehicle, you probably need to incorporate the front bumper camera into the input video so that it can inference that. Because, trying to stop and, for example, let's say you're approaching a car, when you're like right next to a car in the Cybertruck, you can't see if, for example, there's like a bike mounted in the back or something. So I would think you probably need the front bumper camera, although it could be that you don't. But I mean, it's there. Why not use it? So I would imagine they're probably trying to incorporate that in somehow. And that would mean gathering a bunch of training data, waiting until there's at least thousands of Cybertrucks so you have good data. And then the final piece is just it's a big vehicle, right? They've never had FSD running on a big, long, huge vehicle like that. Extra care needs to be taken. You can't drive this thing like a Model 3. The semi truck is obviously going to be very different. The Cybertruck is also a little bit different. And they're obviously testing the hell out of this thing to make sure that it's safe before sending it out. Not only safe for the occupants, but also safe for other people on the road. So all of that has added up to, it has been, we're coming up on a year now. Cybertruck started in November, although, it didn't really start until Q1. But they shipped the Cybertruck, no FSD yet. Hopefully that's changing soon. But overall, if I had to pick between waiting a year for the Cybertruck and just getting the Cybertruck without FSD, I'll take getting the Cybertruck a year early easily. But it's really fun to drive, but it's going to be the ultimate vehicle once it gets FSD just because it's so comfortable, so much more comfortable than my Model 3 or any other Tesla. And I'm always using my Model 3 for FSD. Once the Cybertruck has FSD, I'm going to be driving it a lot more.
Sweet. That's
Okay,
all
great.
I have.
Good. Do you have an answer for the question at the top?
Realistically, I'm thinking it's got to be sometime in Q1, Q2.
Okay. Omar, a lot of people are asking if Tesla will honor the price for FSD when people made their reservations.
I
When the
think they're
non-foundation
almost
production.
certainly going to honor it. You know why? Because the price was 7,000 or 8,000, and the price is already 8,000. So many of the people who locked in this great FSD price, oh, I got to hold on to my 100 Cybertruck reservations. I locked in the price at 8,000 and it's 15,000 now. Well, guess what? The price is now 8,000. So I think everybody's going to get their locked in price.
Okay, good. So that answers that. Do you hear about VW CFO's comments? We talked about it before you joined. CFO said they have 1 to 2 years to turn things around.
Yeah, they don't even have that long. They're already dead. They just don't know it.
Yeah. They have the production capacity, VW's production capacity is 14 million globally, and they only use 9 million of that. So they have tremendous excess production capacity. Good luck
I
shuttering
saw
those
one
factories,
quote or
though.
something that was like, hey, we got 2 extra factories that are empty. Or like, I imagine they were saying like the equivalent of 2 factories worth
Right.
of space. But it's like, wait a minute, you got that much overcapacity and you're not shutting anything down. You're not firing people because the unions are so powerful.
So what are they going to do? So in response, according to Autoline, Germany is reviving some EV incentives after they ended the last year sales plunge that we saw in Tesla sales in Germany as well. And now they're bringing in some tax incentives for new EVs. They're going to be able to deduct the depreciation. People are going to be able to deduct the depreciation of their EVs from their taxes, apparently. Up to 40% in the first year. So maybe we'll see some uptick in Tesla sales in Germany because of that. Magic.
Imagine a product so good that the only way that they can survive is if the government keeps handing them money. What a great product.
So that's a good transition to our next topic. So last night, Rohan Patel was tweeting about the incentives, about credit sales, and implied that these are material. So let me pin at the top his specific tweet that kind of caught my attention. Here it is. So Omar said, as long as Democrats hate Tesla and want to destroy it as revenge, I'm not comfortable having a Democrat in the White House or having Democrats control either chamber of Congress. And Rohan reposted this and said, this is utter nonsense, Omar. I've gotten into this extensively in previous posts, so I won't repeat myself over and over. I don't think I ever felt like anyone wanted to destroy Tesla as revenge, even when I thought they were 100% wrong in their policy decision. Omar, what do you think about this post?
Well, I love Rohan, obviously. He's done great work at Tesla, but his background is that he was part of the Obama administration. And, he came in and was handling government affairs for Tesla. That's all great. But obviously, he's on the Democrat team. And that's fine. I myself have always voted Democrat. I loved Obama, was the first president I voted for. But, it's clear you see it on X all the time. A lot of these Democrats are just mad at Elon and they want to get back at him and hurt the company, boycott the company. You see Robert Reich, Clinton's secretary, calling of a boycott of Tesla, a boycott of SpaceX. Just kind of ridiculous because, oh my God, he tweeted something that was supportive of the Republican candidate. You can't just vote for whatever candidate you want in America, right? You have to vote for the Democrats. And you've really seen this amazing sort of merging of Tesla Q and Democratic talking points. I think Tesla Q has really kind of jumped in here and capitalized on the situation to try and hurt Tesla. So, the idea that, first of all, regulatory credits come from the government, they don't come from the government. The government says, hey, here's how much you can pollute per car you sell, and this is the legal limit. If you go above the legal limit, then we're going to fine you. And this sort of regulatory regime is present in North America, it's certainly present in Europe, and it's also present in China. So in all of these markets, the government has a limit on how much you can pollute for air quality, right? You don't want the air to be too polluted. This is a big issue, especially in China. And if you go above the limit, they'll fine you. Now, there's also a alternative. Let's say you go above the limit. Instead of paying a fine to the government, you can pay another company and buy some of their excess credits. So if one company's making, is way under the limit and one company's a little over the limit, they can trade with each other and then they can avoid a government fine. That's called a regulatory credit. Now, given that Tesla's cars don't pollute at all, they have a ton of regulatory credits, particularly from the California ZEV credit system, the European carbon cap and trade system, and also the Chinese system as well. So these are not actually coming from the government themselves. And they're not really going to go away, even if Trump was elected. So Rohan's tweet saying, oh, subtract the $890 million in regulatory credits. I mean, maybe some portion of the US might go down, but again, this is the California ZEV mandate. So unless they stop California's ability to set their own rules, which who knows, they might try to do that, then that's probably not going anywhere. It's not controlled by the federal government at all. Overall, TLDR, the regulatory credit revenue isn't just going to zero. It's continued to increase over time. And I think whether Trump or Kamala is the president, there's still going to be fuel economy restrictions on how much cars are able to pollute. And as long as there are, there's always going to be a market to sell regulatory credits. As a matter of fact, because so many automakers are pulling back from their EV promises, we're probably going to continue to see regulatory credits increase regardless of who's the president.
Okay. So I pinned at the top Rohan's post about 890 million in global vehicle regulatory credits, and 890 million has exclamation points next to it. It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 exclamation points. It's got 5 exclamation points. Amazing. How material do you think this is to Tesla's business and valuation?
I mean, I think it's probably going to be a growing part of the business in the short term. Long term, they don't need it, and it doesn't matter if it's there or not. I think they're going to generate more than enough cash flow from the business itself. The $890 million that figure that he cites was itself an outlier. If you look at the past few quarters, it's typically more in the 200 to $300 million range. So they may have had some big deal that they signed in the quarter or something like that that made it a higher figure. My guess is somebody needed some credits. They did a deal with them, and then Tesla was able to offer some sales incentives like the low interest financing, subvented rates, and do that because they knew that they had this to show on the P&L, and that they're eventually going to, report the earnings and have this, so they can run at a higher level of sales incentives and get a higher delivery volume without impacting profitability. If they had not had this level of regulatory credits in the quarter, you'd probably see less generous incentives, and they could still manage the business to a profit even without it, I think.
Now, let me ask you this, and then everybody else on the speaker board. If tomorrow, let's assume these credits completely go away, administration wakes up tomorrow and says no more credits across the world, not just in California, not just the US government, across the world, would you sell Tesla?
No, I would actually buy, because the thing is, a lot of people are producing hybrids and EVs because they don't want to get fined. So if you take away the fact that they're going to get fined, you're going to have less EVs and hybrids on the market. That probably means that Tesla sales will go up. I mean, all of these automakers are losing money on their EVs. The only reason they're willing to lose so much money is they know they're going to get fined if they don't make them. So, okay, would I rather get fined over there and look like an idiot who's behind the times, or lose money on the EV, look like I'm forward thinking, and at least save some money on fines? So if this system didn't exist, Tesla's share of the EV market would probably increase.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Uzi, Dallas, Alexander, and Hasseltown. Would you guys sell your shares in Tesla if these credits went away tomorrow?
Well, likely not. I mean, I'm not buying on the basis of regulatory credits. I'm buying because of FSD, autonomy, and Optimus in the long term.
Okay, Dallas.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's the catalyst for vehicle sales long term. I think FSD will sell the vehicles for itself.
Alexander?
Also agree. I wouldn't sell.
Hasseltown?
Uzi said it best. I agree with every word he said.
Okay. So doesn't sound like anybody wants to sell their shares, even if these credits went away. So how material are they? And that's literally the definition of materiality. Does it lead to action by a reasonable investor? If it doesn't, then it's not material. So you're welcome. It's been a while.
Hey guys, can finally talk after a week of COVID.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you feel better.
Yep.
What brings you here? Anything specific?
No, I just thought I'd pop in. It felt like it had been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. What do you think about the tweet at the top by Rohan Patel and a series of tweets about politics, really?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you put the politics of it aside, I know it's like a Democratic bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, and a lot of people I've been seeing talking about the EV tax credit, and Tesla would be better off without it. I think with the Inflation Reduction Act, Tesla has been by far the single largest beneficiary of it compared to other automakers, and it's really not even close. The company, it benefits from several credits. You got of course, the vehicle credit itself, that's a consumer credit, but Tesla still benefits because they can keep prices higher. You got the manufacturing credit, the stationary storage battery credit, and the semi truck. You can get up to like $40,000 off. I know the Tesla semi is not in volume production, but they still sell a few of them. So over time, that amounts to billions of dollars. And without the federal EV tax credit, Tesla would still be in a stronger position than its competitors, but it would also suffer a lot of loss too. I think a lot of people point to a few years ago when there was no EV credit, and people say, "Well, Tesla did fine then." That was true, but also rates were much lower, and the environment for EVs was much stronger. The demand was much more robust than it is today. The growth is better back then. Tesla has a lot of excess capacity these days. Um, and if you take away the EV tax credit, there's I think an estimated 200 million plus Americans that qualify for it would now essentially have more expensive EVs for the ones that do qualify. And that would hurt Tesla to some degree because they would probably have to, if demand doesn't go up or if it goes down, they would have to lower prices a little bit or come up with other ways to boost demand. So I agree with Omar that the crazy eligibility rules kind of creates a mess of a game because you have to jump through a lot of hoops to make certain vehicle models qualify, and that pushes some consumers towards certain models they might not necessarily want, or even lower tiered ones that they otherwise might buy. So in that regard, it's not great. But regardless, Tesla is definitely the biggest beneficiary of it, and I think if Tesla were to lose the EV credit or any other of the manufacturing credits or whatever, it would certainly hurt them more than it would help them if they lost it.
Omar, would you like to respond to that? Before that, however, before Omar responds, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors who make this space possible. Both of these links are at the top of our screens. I appreciate when people support our sponsors. Pay more. Are your electronics collecting dust, or are you ready to upgrade? Visit Paymore and turn them into cash. Paymore buys, sells, trades, and recycles electronics because Paymore believes the best technology doesn't have to come at the cost of our planet or your wallet. Join the Paymore revolution and make a difference for our world. Visit one of their 100 plus Paymore stores near you or visit paymore.com. And our second sponsor, Joa. TSLA Live is proudly sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. Joa offers everything you need to enhance your Tesla ownership experience. Don't miss out on our special offer for Space listeners. Use the code TSLA Live at checkout for an exclusive discount. Thank you, Joa, for supporting our Tesla community. Omar, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I agree with Sawyer. Tesla has been a huge overall beneficiary of the IRA. We're talking about, the IRA now, which is a different bill than, the fuel economy standards. Those have been around for a long time. But, the IRA, the one point I do disagree with Sawyer on is that it would hurt them more than it helps. I think that the balance might be more on help than hurt if they repeal it. Like the IRA, so the first thing you have to understand about the IRA, and I love most of the IRA, like the battery production credits, amazing. Don't get rid of those. Those are great. And I would hope that Congress would be supportive of that. The one thing that needs to be changed, ideally, is the EV tax credit. And if it can't be changed, I would be in favor of just removing it. So the problem with the EV tax credit is it's like a noose that you put around the EV company's neck, and every year you tighten it a little bit. And, it was really invented, these new restrictions on the credit were invented by Joe Manchin, a coal industry executive who hates EVs. So when you realize that they were trying to win Manchin's vote specifically, and that's why they added these provisions, you realize, why this is so harmful for the EV industry. And they have these battery sourcing provisions, so first off, they have a price limit. So this has impacted profitability negatively. Hey, you can't make your car more than $55,000. Well, guess what? Every year there's inflation, the price levels of the economy go up. So next year, $55,000 isn't quite $55,000 anymore. Every year, things get a little more expensive. And depending on what the level of inflation is, those profit limits get more and more expensive. You're seeing Tesla doing these things like, hey, have a free 6-seat interior, have a free ultra red paint if you get FSD, because this is a big problem. I mean, I would have bought a ultra red Model 3 Performance, which is $2,000 extra, instead of getting the free color, except the price cap meant I couldn't qualify for the credit afterwards. So this is directly hitting Tesla's gross margin. Then, of course, you've got income limits, but the worst part is actually the battery sourcing requirements. Every year, they get harder and harder to qualify for. And plug-in hybrids also get this, but because they have such a small battery, it's way easier for them to get the right percentage of qualifying materials because they just don't need as much. So if you need a US supplier, okay, you can do that for a plug-in hybrid. For a BEV, it's much cheaper. So really what you want to look at is what is the price delta that you're getting? The hybrid is still getting the same 7,500 as the EV, and that's what we're really competing against, hybrids and gas cars. If anyone can just throw a battery in a gas car and call it a plug-in hybrid and get 7,500 off, they all will. And so you're not really getting any price benefit, right? It's not sort of the absolute price, it's the relative price compared to the other cars. And the way this is set up, it just makes it harder and harder for the full BEVs to qualify. And over time, more hybrids are going to qualify and not EVs. So now EVs over time, as it gets tougher and tougher, are actually going to be at a $7,500 disadvantage. I mean, that's politics for you. A credit that started as a way to get people into EVs is now over time going to be encouraging people to buy hybrids that pollute instead of EVs. It's just crazy, right? And so the compliance with the IRA, buying from certain suppliers instead of buying from the cheaper suppliers, has actually made EVs more expensive. So I love the EV tax credit. I've claimed it, and got the free $7,500 off my Model 3, which is great. But it's also a big pain in the ass. And if they ideally change, get rid of some of these restrictions, battery sourcing, price limits, make that, get rid of them or make them less restrictive. But if they can't do that and they just have to get rid of it, I would probably be supportive of that too before the proverbial noose gets too tight around the EV industry's neck. And I mean, everyone says, oh, these are great. EV sales like stopped growing as soon as this was passed. They were growing like crazy before it was passed. And then, after it was passed, not so much. So obviously, you can't blame that on the credit. There's other things going on in the economy. But conversely, the question isn't, okay, if they lose the $7,500 credit, then they're not going to have as many sales. You have to look at everything that's going on in the economy. If rates are coming down and there's other factors that are positive, people have jobs, whatever, you could have the cars get more expensive because they don't have the credit, but also see more orders if other factors in the economy are supportive of that.
Any other thoughts, Sawyer? Anybody else on the board?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to keep the credit, but just change the sourcing requirements. I think it's just too many hoops to jump through, and it just creates sort of an unfavorable environment, probably for a lot of companies. Um, Regarding hybrids, I mean, not that many hybrids even qualify for it right now. Like I'm looking at the list right now, there's only one that qualifies for the full $7,500 amount. That's the Chrysler Pacifica. Like it's like 30-mile EV range, but the rest are just 3750, and it's just from Audi, Jeep, and Lincoln. That's pretty much it.
How many hybrids qualify for this 3750?
Let's see, four
4 of them.
plug-in hybrids. Yeah, four of them.
Yeah.
So
And which one is the most popular one?
probably the Ford. It's the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid would probably be the most popular.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, Sawyer, and Rohan pointed that out too. The EV credits helping the hybrid sales is, I think, a bit over exaggerated. But on the other hand, focusing on one quarter's earnings and looking at this $890 million figure and talking about what percent of those earnings is comprised by regulatory credit sales is also misguided. The way to look at it from my perspective, from a valuation perspective, is how much Tesla generated in revenues and profits over time. And I think that's a high single-digit billion-dollar figure. So call it $10 billion to be conservative. And compare that to the market cap, today's market cap. And you find out it's about 1%. So focusing on this Tesla Q talking point, saying without these, the quarterly profit number would be much lower, is taken away from 99% of the value. The fact, the brand, the quality of the cars, the supercharger network, the FSD, the potential Optimus Robotaxi FSD revenue in the future. All of those things drive 99% of the value. And focus on this 1% coming from regulatory credits is just a Tesla Q talking point, in my opinion.
I think like more broadly, I think people just need to ask, like, why are so many people choosing hybrids in the first place? Because they shouldn't be. I think a lot of people feel like they need a gateway vehicle before they jump into a fully electric vehicle. But I think there just needs to be better education that no, you don't need that. You can just go straight from ICE to EV, and it's great.
Yeah. Omar?
Yeah, I think on hybrids, the key to really consider is the delta between the benefit and the cost. So EV's got the $7,500 subsidy at a time when it costs $10,000 or more to put a battery in this thing. So okay, let's say the battery costs $7,500, but the credit's $7,500. So now your delta compared to a gas car is, zero. It's been canceled out essentially. But with the hybrid, and more hybrids can qualify every year. Legacy Auto is working on this. Ford has said they're shifting focus to hybrids. Everybody says they're shifting focus to hybrids, and it's because of this regulation. So if you've got a hybrid vehicle, and let's say that the battery costs $2,000, and then on an EV it costs $7,500, and one of them is getting 7,500 or 3,750. In some cases, a hybrid getting 3,750 may actually see a larger surplus than an EV getting 7,500 because their costs are also so much lower to produce that EV. So this matters a lot in the competitive dynamics. The government should not be tipping the scale in the favor of hybrids.
Thank you. So I pinned at the top a question. Would you sell your Tesla holdings if global vehicle regulatory credits ended tomorrow, and why? And if you're in the listener mode, please go up to the top of your screens and reply. We have a lot of Tesla shareholders in here. So let's see what the shareholders think. Reply to the tweet at the top. Thank you. Alexander.
Yeah, on the topic of why people choose hybrid, I have a friend. He has a Kia hybrid, and obviously that Kia was less expensive than a fully electric car. And he can drive from home to work and back on the electricity, and he's fine with that. So I think it has some use cases, actually.
Stephen?
Hey, Yaman. I know you've had kids in the chat before. I've got my 6-week-old with me, so we're learning about Tesla together. I wanted to respond to something Sawyer was talking about. He was asking, is it an education problem with the hybrid versus EV? I think it's just a comfort thing. I've got 2 sisters that I've tried to convince towards EVs versus, they want to get their Kia hybrids, or one of them's looking at RAV4 hybrid. And every single time, all of their points are like, oh, there's not enough charging or it takes too long. They're all not correct, but it just comes down to, well, I'm more comfortable having gas. That's really the issue. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Would your 60-year-old like to chime in about regulatory credits?
He's finally asleep, so no, he would not like to chime in.
Okay.
We'll keep him there.
Well, when he wakes up one day, bring him in, and I want to hear his take on Tesla as well. How he feels when he's in the car, how he likes what he likes, etc.
Definitely. Thanks.
All right, Dallas.
Yeah, so I own a hybrid as well as a Tesla, and my wife chose the car. The other one, I obviously chose the Tesla, so that's what she chose on her end, was a hybrid. But I think one of the only benefits I can speak to for that car is the range. It can go a hell of a lot further than my Model Y can. So I guess road tripping would be maybe the one selling point. Then again, the supercharging network's pretty amazing. So I don't know. I guess range is the only benefit of that car.
Yeah. I mean, as I like to say, Toyota did a great job capitalizing and profiting from people's range anxiety. They offered this middle ground option, and humans have a tendency to a middle ground option. So that's temporary, in my opinion. When the usefulness of these cars, utility of these cars increase, whether through rideshare networks or robotaxis, EVs will win in the end. But it's getting delayed because of this hybrid nonsense. Omar?
Yeah, I mean, it's all marketing from my perspective. So, my EV, I get in the car, I tell it where I want to go, even hundreds of miles or hours away, and I push a button and it drives me there. So, you know what I've never said? Hey, I wish I have a hybrid so I could drive a little bit longer manually. Okay. So it's just so much of a better road trip experience. And typically, what you find is the car can drive for 4 to 5 hours at highway speeds, maybe a little longer if you're in traffic. And, there's chargers all over the place in California. The FSD just picks a stop, it goes there, it'll even drive into the supercharger parking lot. All I have to do is plug it in. And a typical stop is not more than 15 to 30 minutes, which is, 15 to 30 minutes is about how much time I spend after 5 hours of driving, getting out of the car, going to the bathroom, getting food. And what I really like about the supercharger network and Tesla's trip planner is they put the superchargers nice places. This isn't some weird gas station in the middle of nowhere that's kind of sketchy. They put them in shopping malls, they put them near restaurants, near food, near bathrooms, places you want to go. So you can actually do this long road trip and just say, hey, I'm in California, take me to New York. And Tesla will plot out all these stops for you in nice places where you can go and not only charge, but do the things you need. And it's not like you have to stand by the car and wait for it to charge. You can go do whatever. I kind of have the opposite problem. The thing charges too fast. I'm in and out still waiting for my burger, and they go, hey, your car's almost done. And I got to slide the charge limit up to 100% so I don't get charged an idle fee. So it's just pure marketing. To say that somebody who's driving a hybrid manually is having a better driving experience than any of the people in this group who take an EV. And I mean, look at Raphael and bearded Tesla guy. They just drove a Cybertruck to the Arctic Ocean, right? So it really is something that you just have to get comfortable with. once you've got comfortable with it, um, the reality is very, very few people have use cases that really make a difference. Having a hybrid range versus a modern BEV, some of which can go up to 400 to 500 miles on a single charge.
Steven.
Yeah, totally agree on all of those points. Elliot was whispering in my ear after I went off the speaker board. I think, like you said, it's education. It's also marketing. One thing Elliot was thinking is we should, you know how when you're driving down the road, and you got the blue signs that say Exxon stop. I'm wondering if having Tesla supercharger signs on those could help alleviate that, because people that don't have Teslas don't know where all the superchargers are, and that's just it's a comfort thing. That's really what it boils down to. All your points are true, Omar, and to us it's obvious.
Dallas.
Yeah, I guess I'll play devil's advocate there. And obviously, as you know, I'm a big fan of my Tesla. But one of the only things that I would play devil's advocate on there is range based on their website, and then what we actually get driving on the highway on a road trip. AC running, no one drives 70. Let's be honest, we're all going upper 70s, if not in the 80s, if you're in Texas with our 75 mile an hour speed limits. But I'll be lucky to drive 3 hours. Austin's about a 3-ish hour drive for us, and I'm pulling in low, 10%, if not under that. Would love to know how you're getting 5 hours on the road without charging, because I would love that personally. But I do think currently most hybrids do get substantially more range than Teslas in the real world, I would say.
Well, I mean, Texas is obviously a different market. The speed limits are higher there. You have more open highways, rural. Where I live in Los Angeles and San Francisco, the speed limits are lower. There's a ton of traffic. Driving 4 to 5 miles without a charging stop is pretty normal. And, that's the same type of EV. The EPA range figure you see is, of course, a combined city highway range figure. So they measure the city range, they measure the highway range, and they blend it. Obviously, driving at high speeds without regen, you're going to get lower than what the combined EPA range figure is. So that's pretty normal. And yeah, in markets like Texas, it may be more like 3 or 4 hours rather than 4 or 5 hours.
Okay, good. So the question at the top is, would you sell your Tesla holdings if global vehicle regulatory credits ended tomorrow, and why? And so far, we have 40 replies, and all of them said no. Not a single yes among 40 replies. So this is a litmus test of how material this topic is to long-term Tesla investors. The definition of material is practically, would it change the behavior, action, investment action of a reasonable investor? Machine? Hey, Machine, we have a question in YouTube live chat.
Can you
The
hear
question,
me?
yeah, we can hear you. The question goes, will Machine's mom try Omar's ass?
She's very adventurous. So as long as he bleaches it first. I'm off my game. I came in because I heard so many ridiculous statements in the last 10 minutes. Someone had to come in here and really check reality. First of all, you had some loose polling of your fans about would they sell their Tesla shares if Tesla didn't get any regulatory credits. And then at the end, you said, look, if all these reasonable Tesla investors would still hold on, that says something.
That's not what I said. That's
Big
not what I said.
assumption.
That's not what I said.
Reasonable
Hold on.
Tesla
You're changing my words. You said,
investors.
I said the definition of materiality is, does it change the action, investment action of a reasonable investor? Okay. We have a lot of long-term investors here. So you're telling me that 100% of all the replies saying no means nothing to you?
Correct, because the people here are not reasonable. That assumption is false. So, secondly, Omar's going on here. I love Dallas very politely asking, "Hey, I'm not sure your figures are correct. How you're getting 5 hours of driving time?" He's not. He is because he's on FSD driving 5 miles an hour around the world. Have you been in the car with him? This car goes 10 miles an hour max. He's driving down to Los Angeles from San Francisco. He's on I-5. He's that car in the left lane going 55 miles an hour, causing a backup for miles. Okay, it's Omar holding back traffic, saving his precious PG&E 45 cents per kilowatt hour electricity so he can go down there and say he made it in single charge. Okay, it's not practical.
Well, FSD is actually driving pretty fast now, but you know what I call somebody who sells Tesla stock because there are too many regulatory credits as FSD is hitting escape velocity and actually Smart Summon is rolling out? I call them a moron. Okay. You'd have to be that stupid to be like, oh my God, these regulatory credits when they have this stuff going on. And I mean, this pace of release is coming out. So, I mean, you just do the math, right? You can get a Tesla Model S with 405 miles of range, if range is important to you. You can get a Lucid Air with 520 miles of range. You just do some basic math. 405 miles divided by 70 miles an hour is 5.78. So 4 to 5 hours, absolutely. You can drive 4 to 5 hours with a modern EV. And you take a look at the Model 3 long-range rear-wheel drive with 363 miles of range for $35,000. There's a lot of really good low-cost, high-range EV options these days.
Machine.
With the release of Tesla's latest driving assist, I asked Omar's mom if she could come over and show me the app. And she pulled up the app, and I did tap that ass.
Dallas.
Yeah, just to kind of cap off my point that I was making earlier, the only reason I bring that up is because I've had a couple different Teslas, and that's been my experience personally. When I road trip, the first number I'm thinking about is range. And I get where Omar is coming from. He's talking about average range, between city and highway driving, which makes sense. And I get that. But I think when people want to know about range, they're talking about a road trip. And when you're road tripping, ideally you're going 75 miles an hour the whole way. So I do think there is a need for these Teslas across the fleet to have a higher range, because most people I know who don't want to buy a Tesla, the first thing they mention is, well, they don't go far enough on a road trip. So that's the only reason I brought that up.
Thank you, Chansu.
Yeah, just a comment on machine. I gave a FS ride to a friend of mine for the first time, and he was actually scared because it was going too fast.
You know what I'm really curious about right now? So every day after the episode ends, I do a AI generated summary of the space, and it does a great job, by the way. Lately, it's been doing a great job. And I published this. I switched from manual transcription to AI generation for my patrons, and it saves them 2 hours a day. If you can't make a space, you can just read these bullet points. I pinned an example of it at the top of your screens. It saves people 2 hours a day, 50 hours a month for $10 a month. So 20 cents per hour, basically. And I'm really curious what it's going to do today after all these machine jokes, if it's going to pick up any of these jokes. Machine?
Well, what I would say to Chansu is, I believe Chansu's South Korean or maybe North Korean. And I know in South Korea, no one goes outside anymore. Everyone's just playing video games all day. I mean, I remember all these news stories about people dying by playing video games for like 48 hours straight. And so I think everyone's really afraid of the real world. They're afraid of having children. They're afraid of seeing the sun and getting any melatonin in their skin. And so it's just a lot of fear all around in South Korea. So that would be why.
All right. Machine, what do you think about these regulatory credits? Do you think they're material to Tesla's valuation today, to its future? Assume for a second that today's market cap reflects future discounted value of future cash flows. What percent of it do you think is due to these regulatory tax credits?
I mean, it's tough to say exactly how much is built in. Certainly, I would say maybe 10% would be due to regulatory credits. I mean, I believe what's funny is Omar
You think
is
you
now
think the market? Hold on a second.
poo-pooing.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I just want.
absolutely.
I just want to make sure you said, for the record, you're saying 10% of Tesla's today market cap, $660 billion or whatever. So you're saying 65 to $70 billion of present value is due to regulatory tax credits. Is that what
Yeah,
you
well,
said?
yeah, because you know what? Part of it is that if you took that away right now, that their free cash flows would go down significantly, which by itself would hamper the valuation of the company in terms of its ability to grow. So, you know, it's kind
But
of like
so that statement assumes that the market is currently expecting these free cash flows to continue and grow for 5, 10, 20 years to come.
I don't know that. I just know that they provide liquidity right now, and that has effect on the confidence, on the ability of the company to grow into those future free cash flows, which even if they at that point go away, gives the company a safe spot to survive, you know, and thrive longer. And I just find it funny because I know Omar in previous years would say how much these regulatory credits should be valued because they're kind of been consistent for so many years, and that should be included. That's fair to include those profits. And now he's dissing them, saying we don't need them. Take them away. I'll buy more Tesla shares if they go away. And he's just, this guy, I'm telling you, he's politician 2032, Omar for president. This guy is naturally skilled.
Okay,
Well,
I just want to hold on, just, Omar. Before you, I just want to let the AI know that's going to transcribe this and summarize it for my patrons. Those are not my views. The space does not share the last 2 minutes of views shared by machine. Those are machine's views. Okay, Omar, go ahead.
Well, I think, you know, when you look at the amount of regulatory credit revenue, it's certainly material. I mean, when you're talking about close to $1 billion in a single quarter, it's hard to say, okay, well, this is just completely immaterial. But the funny thing is, the bears are always saying, oh, this is going to go away any day now. Oh, everybody is making these cars. They're all going to, you know, start making EVs, and Tesla's regulatory credit's going to go to zero. So in order to sort of include it in the future free cash flows, to your point, you'd have to expect that. But what the bears are really expecting is, oh, this is just temporary. It's all going to go to zero in time. So I don't know how much of the market cap is actually reflecting that, but I mean, it certainly is a material part of the business, and I actually expect it to grow. Like, no candidate anywhere in the world has seriously proposed getting rid of fuel economy standards. I think Trump has said he's going to lighten them a little bit, but that means not lowering them, but not raising them as much in the future. So even with Trump's plan, it's still going up, right? So I think really it is a material part of the business, but people are probably not expecting it to grow as much as it likely will.
Okay. Any other views on the topic? Okay. Machine, which candidate do you think is better for the transition of the world to sustainable energy?
I don't know. This is a really tough call. We have two terrible candidates, and on one hand, you have the candidate who generally would be more pro climate change, supportive in terms of providing funds and continuing Biden's IRA plan. On the other hand, you have an absolutely destabilizing persona who might cause entire wars to start and cause the US to further accelerate into a renewable energy independence. That might actually weigh in favor. So I actually think it might be Trump. Counterintuitively, as it might seem, in the short term, I think it may hurt, but in the long term, it might be better.
So you're voting for Trump?
Well, no, I certainly did not say that. Unlike Omar, I don't base my voting purely on the benefit to Tesla.
How about the
That
world?
seems totally asinine. I mean,
What
that
about
is
the world?
ridiculous.
What about the trans? Do you not care about the mission? You just said it's better for the
I
mission.
didn't care about the mission, but I don't believe you should be voting for a president solely based. I mean, at least, yes, if you're going to vote on climate change, that's a bigger issue than simply Tesla. I still don't think that's enough issue, or is there a clear difference enough between the candidates on that issue to where I would make a vote in one way or the other just on that issue? There's so many other issues that are important. So, yeah, I couldn't say.
Omar, any thoughts on that?
No.
Okay. All right, let's talk some macro. So we have about half hour left. Yesterday I said we would talk about macro a little bit. We have machine on the board now. On Friday, we have the jobs report that's going to come out, which is very important. This is going to be one of the most important economics reports to be released. Depending on the jobs added, unemployment rate, the Fed will decide whether to go 25 basis points or 50 basis points. How are you feeling about it? What do you think the Fed should do? What do you think it means for Tesla's orders?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I assume, in general, job employment's going to get hurt, continue to go down a bit, but I haven't looked at any of these forecasts. I expect the Fed will cut interest rates. They might only cut 25 points, though, which would be, it seems like the market is pricing in a bigger move right now than 25 points. So there could be some disappointment there. All in all, for Tesla, I think their used car prices again have, I think, started to kind of ease up and flatline. I still think Q3 overall is going to be a little weaker in terms of the margins than Q2. If we see the 2-year Treasury yields going down, and I don't know if that's even without Fed cuts, if that's going to ease pressures on loan rates for Tesla, then we might start seeing a little more bullishness slightly in terms of margins in Q4. But I don't think we're going to see anything drastic. I just don't think there's that much moving the needle at this valuation in terms of margins right now, unless they go back up to like 20% or higher, 25%. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon.
Omar, what do you think?
Honestly, it seems like we're in a pretty good spot. I was just listening to some of the commentary and some people who were out at Jackson Hole, and they're like, everyone was in a great mood, right? 2 years ago, it was there's pain coming, and this is going to hurt. We're starting this tightening cycle. Now it's really looking like they kind of nailed the soft landing. You got to give credit to Powell here. I mean, some critics have said, is this really the time when we need to cut? I think that it's possible that the jobs report that we saw, the most recent one, was a little bit of an anomaly. We'll have to see if that continues or not. But even with some softening of the labor market, it's not like we're in some type of economic crisis scenario. I think they're going to cut probably 25 basis points this month, which is, wow, feels amazing to say that they're finally going to start cutting this month. And I think it'll help companies like Tesla. But it really seems like we avoided any major outcomes. There hasn't been too much economic pain. Unemployment's a little bit higher, but it's not, like 7 to 10%, right? It's still around under 5%.
I think the jury's out. Jury's still out. I mean, these monetary policies have variable, long lags. So jury's out on that front, I think. On the other hand, right now, as it stands with all the data that we have, inflation has come down to two handle, to about 2.5%. The Fed is getting ready to cut rates. Unemployment has increased, but not to dangerous levels. The early indicators, initial weekly claims, and other indicators of the employment picture looks okay. GDP is still positive. Things haven't yet fallen off a cliff, but doesn't mean they won't, because the policy is still restrictive. Debt is high. There's uncertainty around geopolitics, also politics. So jury is out yet so far, I think. But I agree with most things you said.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason they want to act now. You don't want to wait for things to get bad. But we have so much room for easing on the monetary policy side that I think we'll be able to ease our way into any sort of economic slowdown. And we're in a pretty good position overall. So, credit to Powell. This has been a painful tightening cycle, but they managed to, I think, pull it off without causing any major severe recession.
Thank you. Chansu.
Yeah, quick question for you guys. Bank of Canada just cut 25 basis point this morning. So it's 4.25, the rate. Now, Canada has been cutting 25 basis point for three times in a row when US was staying the same. Is there any sort of possibility that might cause kind of like Bank of Japan like situation?
No, that was a specific situation. There's a the carry trade is big between US dollar and Japanese yen. No such mechanism exists or in a material way between US dollar and Canadian dollar. So and Bank of Japan, I think, might be increasing rates again. The last inflation report was a little hotter than they expected. But from what I hear, the issue with that panic sale and the surge in volatility and VIX was due to the unexpectedness of their last move. So, now that people might be expecting, maybe paying a little closer attention, the impact may be lower. But it's something I have my eye on. Omar, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with your thoughts there.
Okay, great. Any other comments on macroeconomics? So Friday is the big report. We're going to talk about it. In the space, I also publish a macro analysis for my patrons, valid patrons. So that's going to go out this weekend. Okay, robotaxis. Omar, the 1010 event, somebody asked me this morning, do you think there will be a service starting on 1010, even if it's geofenced? What would you say to that question?
No.
Okay. No hesitation.
They would need to file permits. You would see it coming.
Okay. Well, there you go. So
I can already tell people are going to be disappointed by this event, no matter how amazing it is, because they're going to say, what? Elon didn't ride a unicorn in? I saw on Brighter with Herbert that there was unicorns they rented. So, I think really this is just about showing off the vehicle. If you listen to Elon's explanation for why the Avail was delayed from 8.8 to 10.10, he said we wanted to redesign the front of the vehicle. They wanted to make it look better. So this is really primarily about the vehicle. They're not going to be launching a service. We're going to see the Cybercab. If we're lucky, we might see some of these new, more affordable models they're talking about too. But really, it's primarily going to be focused around the Cybercab. Now, given that the Cybercab doesn't have a steering wheel or pedals, he's probably going to talk a little bit about Tesla's ride-sharing app that they're building. Maybe give a demo. We could get some details on that as well. But we're probably not going to get a launch for sure. And the Cybercab itself is not going to be starting production for at least 4 to 5 quarters, if not 9 quarters after the unveil. So I'm not expecting any major sort of take homes where like this is live today. It's more going to be, here's the vehicles we're working on, here's the design. The design team is unveiling them. So you can tell a lot of this based on the cities. So Tesla's headquarters is in Texas. Their engineering headquarters is in Silicon Valley. And their design studio, Franz's team, they're in Los Angeles. They work next to the SpaceX factory. So the fact that this is a Los Angeles event, this is the design team doing an unveil of a vehicle that they've designed. So we may get some details around the Tesla network, just kind of Elon making comments, but this is not going to be the launch of a robotaxi network. This is just going to be a vehicle unveil.
Perfect. Thank you. Chasu.
Yeah, a question for Omar. So good points. So Elon, I think one of the replies, he said a few other things that they were working on. That's why the delay, along with the front bumper. What do you think these few other things might be?
Well, I'm hoping it's the more affordable vehicle models that are going to be coming in the beginning of 2025. They said we're making these vehicles on the Model 3 and Y line. They're incorporating a bunch of stuff from the next gen platform. So they have a bunch of commonality with this Cybercab robotaxi. They've got these new motors that don't use rare earths. They've got the new 48-volt architecture, all this stuff except for the unbox process. So it's really crazy that Tesla says they're going to produce these in the first half of 2025. And we haven't even seen them yet. We don't even know what this really entails. So more details on that, I think, would be a great surprise and helps answer the analyst question that, okay, this is robotaxi, but what about the sort of manually driven strategy? What's the next step there? And so I think it would be really cool to see these vehicles. They could potentially be really big. We did hear some rumors of, for example, like a Model Y with 6 seats or a higher seating capacity in China. So, it could be that they have something new to unveil. We don't really know what exactly it's going to be. But there could be quite a few surprises in 2025. Imagine if you have a new Model Y, new lower cost models, and then towards the back half of the year, 2026, you start making the Cybercab. That's a lot of new models, right? We haven't seen a lot of Tesla models during the pandemic because of the supply chain issues. That's starting to change now. We launched the Cybertruck, and the new Model 3 is amazing. The new Model Y and these new, more affordable models could potentially be very big for the 2025 year. I think analysts are not used to Tesla putting a vehicle into production without unveiling it years before.
Thank you. Ori Landman.
Yeah, I think you guys are a bit too bearish. Like, I'm very bullish, especially in the robotaxi. I think that with the recent acquisition of the NVIDIA GPUs, the progress in FSD is going to accelerate so much faster than people expect. Because like recently we've seen all these advancements, which was that when we went from manual coding, we jumped to AI, and the advancement was huge. And I think it's going to continue, because basically what's limiting us is compute power, parameter count. And that's not we can, like, if we increase that, the progress is going to be insane. And I think they're going to talk about that.
Or let me ask you a couple of questions. So I believe this is the
Sure.
first time you're speaking.
Yeah.
Are you in the artificial intelligence, machine learning industry?
No.
Okay. And how do you go about learning about it? Is it from X, like what you see in the Tesla community, in the space, etc., or elsewhere? Do you actually spend some time trying to educate yourself?
Most of my knowledge comes from my degree in mechanical engineering. I have a good friend that is working with NVIDIA, and yeah.
Okay, great. And then the third question for you is, and welcome to the speaker board. The third question for you is, let's see. So you're more bullish. You believe that the new set of NVIDIA GPUs that are coming online you have to stay on mute when you're not talking. Thank you. Are going to accelerate way more than people. But those are relative statements, right? So let's put some specifics around it. When do you think Tesla will roll out a robotaxi service? Do you have an estimate in your mind?
Elon Musk said in the last earnings call that he expects it to be in 2025. He said it would be shocked if it would be after that. And he said the earliest that he expects would be by the end of this year. So expected mid 2025.
Okay. But I didn't ask you what Elon said. We all know what Elon said, right? Everybody in this space knows what Elon said. What do you think?
Mid 2025. I just take what he says and take the middle, and that's where I put my. But of course, it's impossible to know. Yeah.
Okay, and when did you start? When did you start getting involved with Tesla, following the company closely, following Elon closely?
Actually, when I was 2019, when I was in the middle of my degree, I started getting excited about it. Yeah.
So then the natural question is, so obviously you've been around for 5 years and you've seen Elon make predictions, and those predictions have been proven optimistic. So why do you think this time is different?
What do you mean by this time is different?
So you're saying that the fact that his predictions about robotaxi service has proven optimistic in the past, but you're saying this time he's saying 25, 26, I'll take the midpoint. So why not add, look at it from an Elon time perspective, add a few more years. Why do you think he's going to be right this time?
I guess you're right. I mean, it could take longer. I just see that it's already made such a big jump from in the last couple of versions that I think it's going to continue. Actually, yeah.
Okay. So you're saying that the recent pace of progress makes you believe that Elon will probably be right this time as opposed to the last few years. Okay. So let's leave that there for a second. Omar, what do you think?
It's probably a safe assumption that Elon is being a little optimistic again. So if you wanted to base an estimate off of that, then maybe, 2026 is when we might start to see something in earnest. But the pace of the updates has been incredible. Like, I'm using 12.5.1.3. It's doing all my drives without any interventions, and I'm really enjoying it. Then they send me 12.5.3. It's even better. I haven't had an intervention on that version yet, and it's been a few days. So it really is a stunning pace of progress. It potentially could be much sooner than we think, and everybody now has priors that, oh, it's never coming. We've been waiting so long. He always says that. If he were to actually have a breakthrough that resulted in it being pulled off much faster than expected, people certainly wouldn't see it coming because he's the boy who cried FSD. So certainly there is an impressive pace of progress. These things also take time to really get to the level where you can have it without a driver. But looking at where Waymo is with about 18,000 miles per intervention in their test fleet and about 80,000 miles in the fleet, I mean, what's really kind of amazing is you ride in a Waymo and it's a little jerkier and less smooth than a Tesla. So you really see, wow, they're starting to leapfrog them. I have no idea when they're going to be able to launch a driverless service, but the rate of progress is incredible. You can't disagree with that. And
Ori, there you
ass
go.
was a
Yeah.
great surprise.
Ori, were you surprised by the ass?
Sorry about what?
Never mind. Ori, where are you located?
Israel.
Israel. Okay, great. Are you from there, born and raised?
I was born in Switzerland. I moved here when I was 19.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to the speaker board. Welcome to the space. It's good to
Thank you
have
very
you
much.
here. Yeah, mechanical
Thanks.
engineer. That's amazing. What
Thank
type
you.
of work do you do?
I actually work for Lime. Yeah, I work for Lime. I repair electric scooters. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've driven many of those in Austin. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments? We have 15 more minutes to go. Omar, is there anything else we need to cover?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. We'll do, I think I might record with Uzi tonight. Are you going to be able to make it? Our deeper conversation about Optimus forecasts?
I have to get dinner with my girlfriend and my parents tonight.
Okay.
But tomorrow, maybe, if you guys do it tomorrow.
Okay. Let's see. Tomorrow is Thursday. Okay. We have Alejandra coming up real quick. Alexander, we'll try to make it work. What time do you wake up?
My time?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in middle of night for you, I guess. 7 a.m. roughly.
Okay.
6:30 a.m.
Okay. We may have to do it that way somehow. Alejandra?
Yes, you said if somebody had another question, and has anybody brought up the comment that the 100,000 equivalent H100s were brought up to line this weekend? And if nobody, then what do you think the consequences of this on the short term will be?
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday briefly. The fact that XAI was able to bring it up at such a rapid pace. Omar, what do you think?
I think the Grok models are going to be a critical piece to self-driving. I think the self-driving car needs to read and understand signs. I think it needs to be able to even communicate with people, police officers verbally. If you see the cop, sort of wave at you and roll down the window and start talking and say, "Hey, you need to turn around. There's a big crash up ahead." You need to be able to understand that without the cop downloading an app and learning how to use it, right? And Grok's vision capabilities, I think, are going to be really important too. So it's really great to see that XAI data center up, even though it's a separate company. We're also going to be using those models in Tesla products. And hey, guess what? If Elon Musk can get his team to spin up $100,000 cluster, 100,000 GPU cluster in 120 days, I bet the Tesla team is going to figure out how to scale pretty rapidly too. They can talk to each other. So I think it bodes well for the build out at Tesla as well. We've obviously seen Elon post some of the videos from the new Cortex facility. Looks like everything's plugged in, things are up and running. He said the XAI is the largest, which he can only claim for a narrow amount of time because then Tesla's going to have their 100,000 plus the 35,000. So if you count it that way, then that plus Dojo, Tesla is actually going to be ahead of XAI. But that suggests that the Tesla cluster is not fully online yet. But once that comes online, we should see an even bigger leap and the ability to train versions specifically for hardware 4 using hardware 4 images, which should give us another big leap in driving performance.
Do you think Tesla could leverage XAI's compute power in the near term if they have some sort of agreement?
I think that right now the XAI team is focused on using all their compute to train Grok. I think Tesla can use Grok once it's trained, but these are obviously separate companies. They have to do business at an arm's length, and they can't really use each other's compute. But they can use the product of the compute. They can use the model in Tesla's cars, or that type of thing. Tesla is potentially considering an investment in XAI. I would be in favor of it, but that might be something we hear more about in the future if it comes up on next year's shareholder ballot.
Alejandro.
I think you answered my question, but just in case I misunderstood. So you think that this cluster is going to be exclusively for FSD, not for Grok?
You mean the one in Texas?
Yes, the one in Texas. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's what Omar implied. Although I don't know if I agree with that. Like Omar, let's say for example, XAI's GPU cluster today. I understand they're focused on training Grok and everything, but is it going to be used? Every single GPU is used 24/7 for the next 9 months.
Well, ideally that's how it works. In practice, no, it's not always fully utilized.
Right. So if there's any excess capacity at some point, couldn't Tesla pay XAI an arm's length price to utilize it?
They're going to be using all their GPUs, and Tesla's going to be using all their GPUs, and they're ordering more to use those. So I don't foresee that. There certainly is like a liquid market for GPUs. We call it the cloud computing market. So they could sell GPUs to each other, but it probably wouldn't be that substantially different than the market rate. So I think they're just going to build and maintain their own clusters.
Okay. So earlier, Ori said you guys are underestimating how much FSD pace of progress for FSD development will increase once the Gigatexas factory comes up, Gigatexas facility for the new GPUs comes up. Do you agree with him? Do you think we are underestimating how fast the pace of development will increase?
Yes, I agree that we probably are. I mean, if you look at how the system works, scaling it up, making the model 5 times larger, adding more compute, allowing the team to try more experiments, this is going to pretty much guaranteed make the car drive better. And this is only what we've seen so far with the 35,000 GPU cluster. All right, now they're bringing up another 100,000 GPU cluster. Now they're bringing up H200s. They're going to continue to build. Meanwhile, they're also working on Dojo, building Dojo V2. They just did a big presentation about it at the Hot Chips conference. I mean, these guys have invented their own networking stack. They said, hey, TCP/IP doesn't work for us. We're creating the Tesla Transport Protocol. That's how into the weeds these guys are going of the details in creating this training computer. And, if they can actually succeed in making Dojo comparable to NVIDIA or even better than NVIDIA, then they are able to get a 70% reduction in training costs, essentially. In that, your same amount of compute would cost 70% less, which is NVIDIA's margin, or NVIDIA's margin's like 75 or something. So absolutely, the growing amount of compute that they're adding in is going to allow them to train better and better models, bigger models, and it's going to make our car drive better, pretty much guaranteed. I mean, if you look at like GPT-2, GPT-3, GPT-4, they just trained a bigger model and it was smarter. You're seeing a similar thing with FSD.
Okay, good. I noticed that you posted a video of your ass on AI3 and AI4. Would you like to tell us about the difference? How does ass feel on AI3 versus AI4?
Yeah, so I met up with Zach, Black Model 3, your favorite Hardware 3 complainer, to see the difference between AI3 and AI4. And to use Zach's take, it's identical. So you can see the video, both AI3 and AI4 are able to do the drive exactly the same. So whether you have hardware 3 or hardware 4, you're going to get to run actually Smart Summon, and it's going to work the same. This does add more weight to the belief that they've now merged the model, that with this latest build, hardware 3 is running the same model that's running on hardware 4. And if that was the case, then that would explain why the performance was identical. So after a month of whining and complaining and saying, if hardware 3 will never get another update again, and actually when they added hardware 3 support for 12.5, I had people commenting, oh, this is the last update hardware 3 is ever going to get. You know, just ridiculous comments. And here now they're now driving around driverlessly using actually Smart Summon. So, and you know, I met up with also somebody who has a Founder Series Model X from 2017. It was running the latest FSD. Okay. So Tesla's, they put a lot of effort into supporting old cars. When you buy a car from Tesla, you can be pretty sure that in 5 to 10 years, it's going to be running the same software as a brand new car, which is just crazy.
I love all the ass jokes in the replies. So you're saying there will be less complaining going forwards. Great. Awesome. I love it. X-Men Live.
So, Dirty Tesla is reporting that when you're using the ass, that the vehicle backs up to check its visibility and then proceeds. So my question is, if the car does a self park, and of course, you know, when you self park, it goes butt in first, and if it park, you know, with another vehicle behind you, which is very typical in a parking area, it seemed like it would only have a choice of going forward. I'm kind of wondering, has anybody tested that? I haven't seen that in any videos yet of it actually just going forward. There might be some visibility issue. I was wondering what you thought, Homar.
Yeah, I have also noticed that behavior where it backs up a little before starting. This is definitely something to be aware of when you're testing AS. When I was testing it, the first test was in the supercharger and it was like backing up, getting closer to the supercharger stalls. I was like, is this all right? But so you want to watch out for that. But it hasn't hit anything even backing up. So I think it's smart enough to make sure. But it's hard to know if this is for visibility or it's just a bug in the model that they've trained that's going to be fixed in future versions. If I had to guess, I'd probably lean towards the latter because it shouldn't always be reversing even when it doesn't need to.
No, I was
So,
just concerned without those Ford, you know, sonar things that we used to have. If that's part of that behavior, that's the concern.
no, I don't think it has anything to do with that, really. I mean, if you think about like a person getting into a car, they don't need to have their head in the bumper.
That's true.
They
That's
can
true.
just
We
drive.
just look out the windshield and we go for it. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just works exactly like you would imagine. You just push the button and the car comes and drives to you. It's possible that they're backing up to make sure that there's nothing in front of the car, which, you know, is one way to work around that issue. But if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably just a bug in how they train the model. If you showed the model too many examples where people started out by reversing, then it might tend to think that it needs to reverse even when it doesn't. So
Yeah.
right now, my base expectation is that future versions of the model will be able to detect when it's backed in and start driving forward without reversing first.
My other thought about it could potentially be kind of like a shake and bake move. Like if when you can't see and you need to move left or right on the freeway, sometimes people kind of give a fake jiggle to their car, kind of scare people a little bit. It's kind of like a little jiggle before you go, you know, kind of make people aware.
All this backing up of ass jiggling. Alejandro.
One thing that was surprising to me is that from 12.5 for hardware 4, I remember when Elon Musk said, oh, it's going to be about 10 days before hardware 3 gets it. It turns out to be much more than 10 days. And you know, everybody was whining about that. but I was completely blown away when and I'm not sure if I got it. There was a oncoming call. I was blown away when the ask came out for hardware 4, and then I'm not sure if it's like a day later or two. It was very close. It came for hardware 3. I was blown away, and I'm wondering if this rate of keeping them in sync is gonna be repeated, or this is just because it's a smaller feature, just this ask thing. But what do you guys think about it?
Yeah, this matches with what I've been saying, which is that people said, "Oh, now it's going to be a month every time to get it on hardware 3." And I said, "No, that is just incorrect. You're technically mistaken." Because as Ashok said, we're working on getting the same size 12.5 model to run natively on hardware 3. If you can make the changes to the compiler and GPU accelerate the functions you need that are hardware accelerated on AI4, then you can take the same model and run it on both AI3 and AI4 without modifications. So why would it take any extra time to get it ready on hardware 3? You have to validate them both separately, but now you're able to train one model and run it on AI3 and AI4. So at least within the 12.5 series, if they don't make the model even larger, then you can have updates to the model that are the same size that'll be able to be released at the same time on AI3 and AI4. So like I've been saying for the last month, rumors of the death of hardware 3 have been greatly exaggerated.
Any other questions or comments? Anything else on your mind, Omar?
No, just loving FSD. It's just like magic. Like it's set it and forget it now. Which, I'm not saying don't pay attention. Make sure to supervise. It can still make mistakes. But I had to drive, 40 minutes yesterday. I get in my car, I push a button, and it just takes me there, curb to curb. And all the complexity of an urban environment, it just handles it like it's nothing. And now I can drive around without a driver in parking lots.
We have time for one quick question. Tesla time.
Hey, question is, does full self-driving performance across the country depend on the density of full self-driving vehicles in the area or the density of Teslas in the area? And why or why not? i.e., is performance better in California than in the Northeast Corridor and then in more remote destinations? Thanks. And why?
I mean, yeah, the answer is yes. Tesla can collect more data from a larger fleet and more diverse data, more examples of any edge case. So the quick answer is yes. But Omar, would you like to elaborate for a minute?
A little more nuanced answer is they don't need cars from that specific area. So imagine if you built a new city in the middle of the ocean that looked just like California, had the same road signs, whatever. A city that didn't exist before. It could even be a man-made island that didn't exist before. And you could drop the car there and it would look just like California. So it would be able to drive just fine. So it needs to be within the distribution of the data set of the model. It doesn't need to be that the data came from there in particular, but it's able to take what it sees and then generalize to drive anywhere. So, these days the performance is pretty consistent even around the world, but there are going to be different factors that make it work better, some places than others, obviously. But it's not necessarily that you need a car from there. You just need enough data from places that are like that place that it sort of falls within the distribution of the data set and they're able to handle it pretty smoothly.
All right, great. That is all the time we have today. Thank you very much, everybody. The summary of this space is going to go out to patrons in the next few hours. This link is at the top of your screens. Thank you to our sponsors, Joa and Paymore. Those links are at the top of your screens as well. Please check out our sponsors and support them, follow them, leave some good replies, thank them for making this space possible, and also my patrons as well. Thank you very much, and I will chat with you tomorrow. Take care.